My husband was getting ready to go on yet another military work trip, which means solo parenting for me. Between homeschooling 4 kids, breaking up fights, and trying to keep the chaos under control, dinner time can feel like another fire to put out. That's why I rely on make-ahead meals. They save my sanity and keep everyone fed, even on the hardest days. One of our family's make-ahead dishes is creamy chicken noodle soup. And do I have a story to tell you about this soup? When my husband was stationed in Missouri, we were about 12 hours away from our family. And the Lord blessed us with some sweet friends who became our village. While living in Missouri, my husband found out that he needed to have a knee surgery. The week before his surgery, every child in our home got sick. I mean, they all took turn. And when I say sick, it wasn't just snuffles. I mean sick. By the end of the week, I was one tired mama. During his operation, we found out that he needed to have more repairs than they have anticipated. That means recovery time would be a whole lot longer for him. After surgery, we all came home to a house that looked like a hurricane been through. The kids were just still tired and didn't have much energy. My husband was hurting and I was exhausted. I mean, I felt it to my core. The morning after my husband's surgery, I woke up feeling like I did not want to get out of bed. I knew that I had 101 tasks to complete, but didn't want to do any of them. Have you ever felt that way? So that morning I knew I needed to get up and make food for my children. I needed to clean the house, but I just had no strength to do it. While laying in my bed, I quietly whispered. I said, Lord, can you please put on somebody's heart to bring us a meal? While rolling out of my bed, I looked at my husband and said, wouldn't it be nice if somebody brought us a homemade meal? Pretty sure he wasn't too much pain to care about it, but he nodded to probably make me feel better. Now, before this surgery, we've had a few people reach out to us asking if there's anything they can bring us, but not wanting to be a burden to anybody, just like any woman. I said, no, we're okay. 10 minutes after whispering my prayer to the Lord, my friend Anna texted me. Her text forever changed me. As tears began to roll down my cheek, her text said, I would like to bring a dinner for you tonight. Would 3 o'clock work for you? In that moment, the Lord has taught me such a valuable lesson. You see, my friend Anna didn't ask us if we wanted a meal, if we needed anything. She just showed up with food. That afternoon, Anna brought homemade chicken noodle soup, homemade bread, and homemade applesauce made from crab apples. I remember every detail of that meal. When Anna texted me that morning, she did not know that God has used her to answer my prayer for a nourishing meal. God has also taught me a valuable lesson through Anna's kindness is to, when I see a need, to not ask somebody if there's anything they need or if there's anything I can do, but when I see the need, if I'm capable of filling it, just do it. Just like Anna did for us. This story always comes to mind every time I make chicken noodle soup. So I really wanted to share with y'all. Now let's get back to different dish and cooking. So I kind of skipped the chicken salad because I was talking about this soup. But the recipe after the chicken soup I made with turkey. I had a turkey breast in the freezer that I bought for I think like $3 after the holidays, and I just bought quite a few to keep in the freezer for when we need it. So I decided to use that to make chicken salad, and I'm sharing all my recipes in description. So check it out. It's really good. I personally prefer sweet chicken salad, so I add grapes to mine. I also add pecans. And my kids seem to enjoy it as well. Now this recipe for cabbage rolls is my favorite. In Russian, we call it golubtsy, and it really brings me back to my childhood when my mama used to make it. Now that I have 4 kids, I usually make the lazy cabbage roll version of this recipe. It's pretty easy and quick, and I also will link it in description. But when I really want like a good hearty meal, I go for the real deal. This recipe is really easy, and for this particular day when I was making all the meals ahead, I didn't want to have to make any kind of side dishes with my meals because I know that when my husband's gone, it's just usually we stay so busy at kids' activities, and we're right now in the middle of football and church on Wednesdays. So I really wanted something to just warm it up, something easy. And this dish Like you don't have to have any sides with it. Traditionally, golubtsy are eaten with sour cream, so some kids like it with sour cream, others don't like it with sour cream. But pretty much what you do, you take meat, ground beef, you add, oh, what is it called? Rice. You add cooked rice to it, salt, pepper, any kind of spices you want. You mix it up and then pat it out and you boil your cabbage, right? So that way when you fold, the leaves don't crack. Now, this is a pretty important step, so let me share with you before I forget. After your cabbage head is boiled and you peeling all the leaves off, there is a ridge on each leaf. So you want to take a small knife and cut that ridge, the rib that goes in the center of the leaf off. The rib makes the leaf pretty hard, so you really want to cut it and level with the rest of the leaf so that way the rolling goes pretty easy and smoothly. Once I roll all the cabbage leaves, I next go on to making the sauce. And the sauce is really easy. You can make your own homemade tomato sauce. I just use the one I get at the store. I prefer adding cooked or caramelized onions and cooked carrots to my sauce, but you can also omit that. And so once your cabbage rolls are ready, you can just pour tomato sauce over it. But like I said, I enjoy extra vegetables, and it's kind of like I feel like it's kind of hiding it. So the kids that are picky in my house and do not love vegetables don't seem to mind when it's in the sauce. Now, the spaghetti sauce that I use sometimes tend to be a bit thick, so I would just add a little bit more water in my tomato jar, just kind of shake it up and add it to the pan to kind of thin it out. Then I pour the sauce over my cabbage rolls, stick it in the oven, and I go on to do my farm chores while the meal is cooking. I don't know about you, but I love learning about different cultures. I love learning about food history. And golubtsy have a history of their own that I find it to be interesting. So the idea of wrapping food in leaves go all the way back to ancient Greeks and Romans, and they used grape leaves to make dishes similar to golubtsy. But that tradition and that dish traveled all the way to Europe. But in Europe, they had a problem of having grape leaves available at all times. So the cooks would substitute it with cabbage, which thrived in cooler climate like Russia. And in Russia, golubtsy took hold sometimes around 18th to 19th centuries when rice and other important grains became more accessible. In earlier versions, often used buckwheat, which is a very popular grain, or millet as a grain filler in this dish instead of rice. Now the story gets even more fun. So the word golubtsy comes from a Russian word golub, which means pigeon. The dish was thought to resemble small stuffed pigeons, which were a delicacy in aristocratic French cuisine. Russian cooks created a more frugal imitation. Instead of using real birds, they made little pigeons from cabbage leaves filled with minced meat and grains. Like how clever is that? So under the Soviet Union, golubtsy became a home classic. The recipes were standardized in ghost culinary manuals with beef, pork, rice, and tomato sauce as the most common version. I was born during Soviet era, and so I really want to just take a few minutes to kind of explain what does ghost culinary manuals mean. So ghost translates to state standards. So it was a USSR-wide system. Once a recipe like golubtsy or cake or candy was codified in ghost manuals, the same formula applied everywhere, whether you're in Moscow, in Kiev, in Minsk, or Riga. The goal was uniformity. So a slice of Prague cake should taste the same in Kiev as it does in Moscow, or a portion of golubtsy should taste the same as in Minsk and Riga. So take my word, friend, try making golubtsy at home. I promise you, if you love cabbage, Even if you don't love cabbage, I have some kids who on their own do not like cabbage, but there's just something magical about this recipe in combination of ground beef, spices, rice, and cabbage leaf that's cooked in tomato sauce. That makes this dish so comforting and just the best. Now, the last dish I decided to make was Mexican street tacos. Now, in the past, anytime I try to make tacos, I would just buy ground beef, taco seasoning, and all the fixing to go with it. But when we had a cooking class at our homeschool co op, teacher was teaching kids about different dishes from different countries. And one particular day, she was teaching kids how to make Mexican street tacos. Let me just tell you, it was so, so good that I have never bought another taco seasoning at the store again, realizing how easy it is to mix a few simple spices together to create the taco flavor. Now, in class, we used dark meat. We used chicken thighs, which everybody liked. But I had white chicken breast in my fridge, so I decided to go with that. And so, one of the specifics of this recipes that I we all enjoy is I cut up the chicken very, very small. So that way each piece is coated with seasoning, and but the downside to that, it takes forever to cut the chicken, so I usually recruit my girls to help me, and they're always glad to lend a hand. Now, we do have a few picky eaters in the family, so I usually fill up one pan without any vegetables, and then I fill up another pan and mix it up with caramelized onions and sweet peppers. Also, if you can make homemade tortillas, which are so easy to make at home, this will elevate your dish to the next level. I usually make a lot of chicken because we rarely have any leftovers. These meals were such a gift to have on hand. They made the week run smoother, took the pressure off, and reminded me that a little planning goes a long way. And if you're wondering whether we made it through the week, well, by God's grace, we did, with a few emergency trips to Dairy Queen for ice cream sprinkled in. Because sometimes that's just what gets you to Friday.